Howdy nerds, happy Halloween. I hope you enjoy my pumpkin costume. That's the most you're gonna get out of me for today for Halloween. So this is probably gonna be a very ranty video, probably the rant to end all rants. And I'm sure it's going to lead to a lot of upset people because I'm not gonna hold back with this particular video because, just be honest, I'm kind of down in the dumps. So I think my last video was a lot of cope. I was trying to try to find the silver lining out of Universes Beyond being kind of forced down our throats in Magic the Gathering, and making the argument, playing devil's advocate, that Magic the Gathering is the mechanics. That as long as the mechanics of the game, and I still see it was a necessary evil because people were really moving on Wizards of the Coast turf, and there was no way to really stop them from, you know, having a South Park game, for example, just become a knockoff of Magic the Gathering. It would have happened if they didn't make that move into Universes Beyond and start to grab these IPs before other companies just start making basically knockoff Magic games. But again, the video was very, yes, I'll be the first to admit, it is very cope. It's me trying to juggle how I can still support the game, how I can still be passionate about the game, how I can still want to be involved in the game, and accept Universes Beyond at the same time. So let's go take a little bit of a history of me. I've talked about me a lot in this channel, of course, and my relationship with games and why we started a game store. And I think that is very relevant and very important because I don't want to get to the point where I'm just seeing customers and just seeing this entire industry as money, as, I mean, obviously, money is a big aspect of why you do anything. It's why I made a career out of this, is if there was no money in it, obviously I wouldn't start a store. I wouldn't be doing what I would be doing. I'd be pursuing something else. But it's nice when you can make a living out of something that you're passionate about, something that is important to you, and something that you're very well versed in, knowledgeable because you have real life experience with it, and you can still eke out a living. Like, that is always superior than going down a road of going into a career where you have no passion and it is just money, where you're just, you know, viewing things in the terms of how much money I can get from this. So with that in mind, let me give you a bit of history about Magic the Gathering, okay, I guess this all started when I've got a lot of messages from friends that I haven't heard from for a while, that I met through Magic the Gathering, that they're also pretty much down the dumps about this decision of Universes Beyond being kind of forced upon us into the standard format. That it was one thing, it was just in Commander, because you can still self-regulate Commander. You can be like, guys, let's not play these stupid cards, let's play Magic. Not like Commander's always been a self-policing format with you and your buddies. It's never been like an official format. There haven't been robust tournaments and things like that. And so it has been something that if you just don't enjoy something, you don't have to engage in it. You don't have to play on cards. You don't have to play X, Y, or Z. You can always just keep it how your group likes to keep it. However, standard and more of this organized play aspect is something that is very top-down. It's where Wizards of the Coast decides on a clear path to tournaments and how the tournaments are run. And that is worlds difference with then being, as I stated, more forced upon having to engage in certain content that maybe you don't find enjoyable. And now that I've watched some videos and I've thought back on my history with Magic the Gathering and where it all started, and it was really the video from Magic Age. So if you don't know who Magic Age is, go ahead and check out Magic Age. A little bit of context of that too, is I actually quit doing videos, modern videos, standard videos. I really quit doing Rogue Deck Builder when Magic Age took off because I just felt his content was just better than mine. His brews, a lot of times where he'd always get the cards before I did. And it just felt like the mantle. I'm like, okay, I don't need to do this anymore. I'm not as passionate as I once was with brewing decks, with trying to break modern, with trying to fool around the cards. And now there is someone that I think does basically what I was doing in a better editing, definitely more focused, definitely more passionate. Then it felt like, okay, the mantle's been passed on. I don't really have to do this anymore. And so you can kind of blame Magic Age for why I quit the Rogue Deck Builder. Mainly it's a good thing though, because I did enjoy his content, and I'm like, okay, this person is filling that niche, filling that void of where I'd be leaving. So anyway, he did a video on basically Universes Beyond being kind of shoved down our throats now. In modern, which is Lord of the Rings, you can actually make the argument that Lord of the Rings has a lot of kind of overlap in the fantasy realm, so it's not that big of a stretch to be Lord of the Rings, Magic the Gathering. Yeah, those work really well together. They're both fantasy-based. They're both, I mean, Magic the Gathering would not exist without Lord of the Rings. The whole token universe building led to the entire fantasy genre. So that is a lot more stomachable to be playing with Orcish Bowmasters in the One Ring than it would be to be playing with Spider-Man in Modern. Or as everyone said, it's just turned into Fortnite. Whatever skin you personally like, you're forcing the rest of people to kind of engage with that sort of genre. So anyway, I highly suggest you go watch that video because it honestly did make me rethink of my stance on where Wizard of the Coast is headed and this whole universe is beyond, and really feel sad for a lot of my memories, a lot of my nostalgia of when I got into Magic, and it was so, fantasy themed, and me and my nerd buddies that love fantasy, I mean, I used to really love Raymond E. Feast. That was my kind of author of choice when I was a kid, and Magic worked really well with that. I loved fantasy. Actually, a little bit about me, I wanted to be a fantasy writer. That was my fantasy when I grew up. I wanted to actually write fantasy books. Was really into that stuff, and I grew out of it. I would say in this. Like there's a few things like Joe Abercrombie. I still enjoy reading a few books from Joe Abercrombie, but I'm definitely not in I've grown past kind of that whole really being immersed in the fantasy culture, reading fantasy books and stuff. I have so many other pursuits and hobbies and stuff that it's just kind of taken a backseat with that. But anyway, my whole Magic had a very important role in my life because I've always been a gamer. I've always enjoyed games that are engaging and also have a lot of critical thinking and are, extremely strategic, and Magic just fit that itch. We would play Magic the Gathering, and it was the great friend maker too. I have a lot of friends. There's no way that I would have ever been friends with them if it wasn't for Magic the Gathering. It brought together all walks of life into the lunchroom that just wanted to, sling spells. And it was a really, really fun time to grow up in that very niche group of people that had just enjoyed a card game. And I think that's one of the other things I'm having an issue with is when you try to appeal to everyone, you end up appealing to no one. And with Magic trying to go super mainstream of getting in all this pop culture, yes, it loses identity, but there is something special about little niche groups and niche hobbies where it isn't mainstream. Like, do we all, like, most of us, at least us older millennials, we come from a time period where nerd culture was something to be made fun of, spit on. It wasn't something that was glamorous. We were the nerds. We were the people in the lunchroom being made fun of, getting wedgies thrown, pushed into urinals. That's like, not me personally. I wasn't necessarily, bullied more than anyone else, but a lot of the people I engaged with they were kind of the nerdy. Like, there was nothing glamorous about playing Magic the Gathering. And there's been this big cultural shift to try to make this nerd culture so incredibly acceptable. I have a funny story about that I'll have to get into sometime. I was dating a girl at the time when Lord of the Rings came out. And again, nerd culture was something that wasn't stomachable for the vast population. This is before Big Bang changed culture. It's before, the Lord of the Rings and the Avenger movies became so mainstream. And I remember Lord of the Rings just changed everything, where everyone overnight thought that they were into fantasy. And I remember being so upset with my girlfriend at the time because, so a little bit of context with her, I've always kind of chased the exciting women, and this particular girl, her sister was head cheerleader, and she was the hot lifeguard, and there was nothing nerdy about this girl, nothing at all. It's obviously why I was into her. And overnight after Lord of the Rings, she thought she was like, nerd culture became so mainstream. And I remember just being so disgusted by her and by, not to that, but the cultural shifting, because I'm like, this girl was the same girl 10 days ago that was making fun of the, kids in the library reading their fantasy books, or, was looking down on that entire culture. And now all of a sudden they feel like that they can just partake and our little thing that I think that we kind of built up. But I don't want to be like a gatekeeper and exclusionary and be like, people can't get into this. But at the same time, it's like, this almost feels like this is now we've hit the kind of the pinnacle. We've hit the point of no return to where Magic the Gathering, or a lot of what we've has kind of been our thing, is now just, absolutely turned into a dumpster fire of pop culture. And again, there's no point of return now with that. So again, I've just been kind of down the dumps with where do I go from here. It was just, my last video was so much cope. It was trying for me to juggle the fact that there's nothing I can do about it. It's done. This is the direction it's going. And am I still going to be able to find some enjoyment out of this? Because as I mentioned, I own a store here. And to be very, very honest, these stores I cannot work off of just board games. I cannot just work off miniatures. You have to have Magic the Gathering. Magic the Gathering Pokemon are a must in this industry. They are the breadwinners. They are the whole point to owning a store, is the money that is in those is just, it completely overshadows everything else. And so it's, as I stated in the first video, it helps a lot if I can still maintain passion. Like if I'm passionate about stuff, it's a lot easier to sell it. It's a lot easier to get people excited about it. And that's where I'm having a hard time right now, is first of all, I'm losing my identity with some of my customers. Like you used to find a lot of common ground with, I could go into any game store and I could find so much common ground with everyone there. Like we had a lot in common as far as playing and wanting to enjoy the game. And now it's almost like, again, this whole demographic that's now being added into Magic has a different reason. I like to call it kind of clickbait, where they're not, or fair weather fans, where this is just a new trend. It's like when Pokemon Go got big, everyone was like all into this, terrible game that had terrible mechanics and stuff. And in my opinion, was just a spit on like actual games of how. Anyway, that's a rant for another day. But anyway, it became so mainstream, it's like, okay, well, I don't have anything in common with all these other people playing Pokemon Go. And that's kind of where I'm coming with Magic the Gathering. And then take on the fact that we go now into Foundations. So Foundations was like the other straw that absolutely broke this camel's back. I've always thought that adding something like a core set that stayed around for a long time was critical for Standard. Like the whole point of Foundations was supposed to be a place where you could park a bunch of cards, like the one of the things, if you remember Kaladesh, the complaint during Kaladesh was there was no naturalize effect. So there wasn't just a card that destroyed artifacts very efficiently during the format. And people were like, man, this would be so nice if we just had this common that has stuck around forever and just somehow lapsed during Kaladesh when we need it to answer things like Aetherworks Marvel. And, there's been these big holes like that. It's like, geez. But what ends up happening, if you have to continue to create those type of cards to enforce parts of the meta from, going off the deep end in one particular strategy, then it leaves a lot less design space for mechanically flavorful things. And they have to slot in a Stony Silence or a Rest in Peace or a Leyline of the Void into a slot that could have been something that was more thematic, something that was more, like I said, is more into the mechanics of that particular set, and it felt like a wasted slot. And especially if it was another reprint of a reprint of a reprint, they have to continue to reprint these things. It just becomes very monotonous to see these cards over and over. So if you have a set like Foundations that just stays legal for a long time period, you can just park those cards that are needed to regulate the format, and you don't have to worry about throwing it in a Bloomburrow or in a Duskmourn. But that's not what ended up happening. Foundations comes out and they try to pitch it as this beginner set. It's going to have the foundations for the standard format. And then I'll go back to the term clickbait. Then it looks like almost a master set with what they're reprinting in it. And it's a lot of cards that are flashy cards. And in my opinion, problematic cards. Like Omniscience can be very problematic for a standard format if they create some things that are hard to interact with and can be cheated out with Omniscience or go into a wombo combo and gaming combo. Is it really a card that you want to stick around indefinitely in Standard? And then they did the biggest FU to Kevin that's possible, is reprinted my most hated card ever, one of my most hated card ever, in the form of Embercleave, which I think is the most format warping card. I'm not saying it's the most powerful card ever, it's format warping. It makes the entire format warp around Embercleave. It did last time. It made it so Celestia decks and Simic decks were actually so unplayable because green decks needed to go either into removal, so go into Golgari, or it had to go into Gruul, because Embercleave was just that powerful. And if you look at the meta for a long time in Standard, Celestia has been so unplayable because they continue to push the red aggression decks to try to be able to compete with control. This become out of control in the last few years. And it leaves these synergy or tempo-based strategies that Simic and Celestia are known for as completely unplayable. And so again, this is like we were so happy when Embercleave rotated out of Standard because it gave the format a lot of breathing room now that you didn't have to always worry about 2 untapped mana going into Embercleave. And it was just Embercleave was just such the perfect card that it had no downside. It had very little risk to playing it because it was easy to get it out. And then if you did answer it, you're usually down resources. And so it basically forced all decks that were in that sort of even mid-range or any sort of aggressive thing to be playing Embercleave. All roads led to playing Embercleave. And then we go into like the doubling seasons and all this other stuff that's been printed. And the biggest thing too with what Zach and I were ranting about is this is supposed to be a beginner set where people are getting their feet wet into Standard. Okay, well don't have a slot then that's not playable in Standard with what I'm talking about is like the big score slots, those type of slots they put in sets that aren't legal. They're just reprints. They're supposed to be the oohs and ahs of you can get this card in a standard-based thing that can be played in Commander or in Modern. They are confusing. As a Stormer, the amount of times that people have tried to play those cards because they opened up in a Standard pack, it happens all the time. And then they're like, what do you mean I can't play this? I opened it up in this pack. Well, formats are a little more convoluted than that. They're a little more, you know, yes, you can get them in packs, but you can't play your Phyrexian Altar in Standard. It's only in here, you know, or Ashnod's Altar, whatever one of those have been Brothers War. Yeah, I know you got it out of Brothers War pack. It's not legal in Standard. This is why. And it just leads to confusion. And the whole point, they're like, oh, we wanted Universes Beyond so that people know that they can play their cards in whatever format they want to. Yes, in the same breath, though, now you've still have the same problem with your boosters having cards that are unplayable in a particular format. And it's just, and then these things also can warp the draft environments oftentimes. And it's just, it's like it was obvious with Foundations, they were worried that it wasn't going to sell. And so they had to put the oohs and ahs. And again, it just shows the direction that Wizard of the Coast is in, that they have no respect for their own game. It used to be they had respect for the game. They didn't do these big, they would do power resets. You remember like Battle for Zendikar was a massive power reset because they realized that the power level was getting so high that they had to reset it. And they've done this over and over in the history of Standards, is they realize that they need to, yes, things get ramped up, and then we have to do a power reset, and we just have to deal with it. We'll have to deal with the low sales, we'll have to deal with the low engagement, because the health of the game matters. And it seems like Wizard of the Coast has just become so kind of, just the, like I said, the clickbait mentality, oh, we got to get everyone the FOMO mentality. Then now Foundations, which is supposed to be like a critical part of just this entry level product, they've turned it into the same nonsense of, oh my God, here are the reprints, here are the power level cards. And it's just so taxing to keep up with. So anyway, so Magic the Gathering, I'm just kind of down in the dumps with it. It's hard for me to want to get excited about it. It's very, very difficult for me to kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel with it, when it's just, you think we're going to turn a page in Magic. They've been doing a good job with a lot of things. They brought back the Worlds was exciting to watch. We have a format in Standard that at least, it's not my favorite, but at least it's interactive, and it's not plagued by a lot of wombo combo-y or I mean, again, it's got issues, but it's night and day from, and I've had to accept that current Standard is kind of like the power level of old school Modern. And I used to enjoy that. So yes, I'd like a dumbed down, less power level format, but it's still playable. It's something that I can enjoy brewing in. It's something I enjoy playing. And it's a breath of fresh air from Standards of the past, or the direction of basically Wizard of the Coast not even caring about Standard, if you know, creating Commander cards. And then basically, let's go in this way now. I have customers, I don't want to hear them me ranting over and over. So basically, it's just go in my safe space here, my board game room, where I can feel happy about all my wonderful board games I can play. So anyway, so that's where I'm kind of at with Magic the Gathering. So lastly, and this is where I'm probably going to really tick people off, is yesterday broke my little heart. And I said I quit ranting about Pokemon but you're gonna need another Pokemon rant from me because I am tired of the direction of that culture, of how that's gone to. And as I stated too, where Pokemon seems to be the same problem, where it's gotten so mainstream that it's basically welcomed into what I like to call the undesirables. The people that are not really the fair weather fans. The people who are not really in this genre or this game because they enjoy it. They're in it because it's mainstream and it's the cultural thing to do. So what happened yesterday? We had a kind of a Main Street, they're trick-or-treaters for the day before Halloween, so that the kids could have a safe place to trick-or-treat on the businesses. The businesses were all giving out candy, and we were giving out Pokemon packs, and so people realized we're giving out Pokemon packs, so we get these kids in, of course, that want Pokemon. This kid came in, and total bro of a kid, you know, not a nerd whatsoever, total bro, and he opens up his Pokemon pack, and he doesn't get anything he likes, so he proceeds to bend the cards and throw them on the floor. And I'm like, cool, dude, cool. And then he goes off, and then he starts spouting to his friends about his Charizards and how he's going to sell them and grade them. And I'm like, oh my God. This is where this mentality is coming from. This is exactly what I've been talking about with the investor bro coming into this sort of genre. It just takes the wind completely out of my sail to want to even promote this, or like where has nerd or gaming culture gone? When it goes mainstream, and maybe me using the term, I'm acting like a gatekeeper of like, well, you know, every normie can't get into games because it's my thing. That's not what I'm trying to say. I've always wanted, there's always been a part of me that wanted like StarCraft or Magic the Gathering. I even wrote a paper, I remember, in high school about like, why do we celebritize sports stars, but we, you know, degrade people that are good at like StarCraft. I did a whole paper on Gurr. He was, I think his name was what, Guillaume Patray? I can't believe I still remember his name, but he was the first Canadian, so the first non-Korean to ever break 100K in StarCraft. And I was always, I posed the question, why do we, you know, make fun of people like, or remember John Finkel, the whole debacle with John Finkel when he went on that blind date and the person Googled him and she realized he was a gamer and she's like, nope. But if she would have Googled him and he would have been a sports star, then it would have been, oh, amazing. Tell your family about how you're dating the sports star. And so yes, a part of me has always wanted gaming to become mainstream and culturally acceptable. But there's a difference between culturally acceptable and getting what I like to say the undesirables, the bros, the people, the fair weather, the fans, that are just trying to milk this because it has some sort of cultural acceptance. It becomes like fidget spinners and all this other things that are just like last a month. And now that's what I've been saying. What has been so annoying, obnoxious about this kind of crypto bro culture in Pokemon of investing is this is what it's done now. You've completely tainted an entire generation now of younger people now that they think the entire purpose of Pokemon cards is to flip them. And so I was getting excited when Scarlet and Violet came out because we had this new energy with Pokemon. People were actually playing the game again. We had record numbers of people watching YouTube videos, and you can actually go and verify this. Before Scarlet and Violet came out, YouTubers that tried to create decks and play Pokemon online had dismal views. All the Pokemon views were rip and chips. That's all it was people, you know, just, you know, do what they do over opening up Pokemon packs. Whatever, it's not my cup of tea. I don't find enjoyment of it, but, you know, obviously people do. And again, I'm not taking like a slam at people like the should I open it or keep it sealed guy that went viral. Like, you can tell passion in those type of people. Those people are fine. I'm talking about every bro and their bros that have now gotten into Pokemon and acted like they've always been in Pokemon and have been opening up Pokemon packs and frothing over their little investments they're going to make in Pokemon. And at that point, it's just like the game's lost its entire purpose and meaning. And like I said, it's just sad that it felt like Pokemon was turning a page too. The content that was being consumed was watching and playing and going to events. And now it's back to not only the bro culture taking over and the rip and ship culture taking back over to Pokemon, but it seems like Pokemon itself, the company, is really leaning into it. And I don't know, I'm just so tired of opening up my YouTube and seeing the 9,000th channel on how to invest in Pokemon cards. And again, after that kid with his, didn't open up anything he liked in his pack, and so he just, you know, destroyed his cards because these cards had absolutely zero worth because no one's ever going to play the game. We just want to open up a Charizard that we can flip. And he was talking about how he's going to like sell Pokemon cards for his motorcycle or something. Like, oh my God, you're like 10. or I don't know, he's older than that. But it was just that sort of stuff. It's like, geez, I don't want to become just so beat down with this. I don't know, I guess you all are kind of my little therapist here, where I can get my rant out. And it's been kind of a long ranty video on where we're going with this. But you know, it's just, hopefully I can find some bearing. I can find a balance. Like I said, I probably ticked off a lot of people. If you identify with this, you know, whatever. I guess the gloves are off, because I don't think you're doing, you know, this hobby a service by engaging in this sort of behavior. And I don't think that they're gonna last. I don't think these type of people they're just gonna come in, they're gonna crap all over everything, and then they're gonna leave, and they're not gonna care. They're gonna go on to something else that they're gonna crap on. Whatever else becomes, you know, culturally significant, whatever pop culture thing is the new thing, then they'll just go in and distort and taint that. So anyway, kind of a long, kind of ranty video. I thought it was gonna be a little more concise with what I was saying, but as kind of a person that's been in this industry, in this hobby for a long time, that really did, I think I did genuinely, when I started the YouTube channel, when I started the store, that was the overall goal, was to try to promote, you know, like-minded engagement and excitement for a hobby that we all share together. And it's just rough. It's rough in today's day and age now, which is seeing just the bastardized version of everything that we kind of held dear. And am I being a gatekeeper? Am I just being an old man, you own the clouds? These new generations can enjoy what I enjoy. But at the same time, like, why try to fix what's not broke? You know, why try to take away the magic of what made magic magical to begin with? And who knows? Who knows? We'll see what ends up happening. Like I said, I'm too married to this industry to change now. So I'm just gonna have to learn how to accept it. But again, the whole point of this is I don't want to turn into that person that just sees customers as money bags and, you know, frothers, and like, how can I eke out their money and not really, you know, have like that was the coolest thing about being a game store owner or even a YouTuber, was seeing the excitement that you provided and into that sort of community, to where it's like, oh, we can all get excited about the same thing. We can all like promote this because we genuinely like it. And I don't want to be that guy that's like, oh, I hope Wizards creates this other FOMO product that I can 3x my money. And again, just see it as a job. I know I talked about how you have to be dispassionate whenever you start a business, where you have to be able to separate passion from business. But at the same time, it makes it so much better when you can still be passionate, when you can still like believe in what you're selling and what you're doing, and at the same time make a living out of it, a business out of it. So thanks for being my therapist today. Feel free to tell me how I'm wrong and how I'm a terrible person and I'm a gatekeeper, and give me those dislikes and hateful comments. They feed me. Thanks for watching.